Love it. Open extensibility. And that, as you said, opens the room for more risk, more competition. How do you think about competition? Somebody using the project that you have created, that you feel ownership for, but also them, I guess, are throwing a chip in and saying, I also feel some level of ownership. I also want to build a commercial product. How do you think about competing with them?
Well, as a company, you always like, and I'll probably again don't misquote me on this, but like, companies love to be monopolies. Like your dream as a company is to have huge moats and to have something that's so unique that you own 100% of a growing and thriving and critical market, right? That's our dream, right? That's not always in the cards, right? That's really, really hard and that's super, super risky. And so I think a big part of the way to view this is again, I think, would you rather have a smaller part of a large and thriving ecosystem or 100% of something that's rather small? And clearly the answer is, why can't I have both, right? But like that's not always what you're going to get to. So I think there's a strategic decision around, we want to create something, a movement in a rising tide that we can then participate in, that is very, very difficult to do if you don't have a community aspect, if you don't have that ecosystem to be able to build around. There's tons of companies that have like, hey, I want to rebuild a Windows Office like duopoly type of thing, and it's like, yeah, that's great work if you can get it, but like, a lot of people have tried and broken themselves against that particular type of goal.
And to that point, you might have noticed the recent furore with a bunch of different open source projects and commercial companies and forked projects from other competitors. How do you think about disambiguating some of the narrative there? I mean, what would you say in terms of clarifying perspective?
The fundamental cause is that the way that the communities for the open source projects were structured, was incompatible with the business models for the companies that were sponsoring them. And that's the type of thing that you can paper over for a while, but eventually you're going to have to solve that. Either the company goes out of business because they don't have enough of a business to support that project, or they go and they redefine the rules and they run the risk where the community will revolt on them. And so, it's a problem that I think, you very much, as you engage in open source, you want to make sure that you know how this is going to play out and that you have a game plan there. And I think, to be fair to some of these companies, there's an emergence of other motions that they probably didn't foresee. Like this idea, and I think this is especially common in startups built around open source databases, where a lot of the monetization comes from being able to run these things and actually bring that experience, the full experience to it. And they found that them being the sponsors of the open source community did not give them enough of a leg up when it came to be able to manage these things and run these things as a managed service. Oftentimes others are maybe better prepared to make that be a feature of a larger platform versus a standalone product, right? And so that's a really hard situation for everybody to be in. The point of open source is you take this risk where you put it out there, other people can do stuff with it, and sometimes they will, and sometimes they may actually take it in a way that's inconvenient for your business. And so I think that that's something that you got to be thinking about and working through as you go. And some of this is understanding like, where is IP critical and where is IP really secondary to the larger experience that you're delivering. And like, I think one analogy here is, I think we're all sitting at home with COVID, not with COVID, but like quarantine because of COVID. I hope we're not all sitting at home with COVID. And like, I'm ordering a lot from restaurants, right? And it makes you think about, where is the value there when you're doing that? Because like, if I have a hamburger, I can make that hamburger at home. Actually, I'm getting pretty good at it. And it can be a good hamburger, and it'll be a heck of a lot cheaper, right? The IP for making a hamburger is not like, the fry sauce is a ketchup and tomato, the ketchup and mayonnaise mixed together, right? There's the secret sauce is not that secret is when it comes to a hamburger, right? So the IP around this is actually relatively low. But yet there's still real value for me going to a restaurant and having a hamburger and having somebody do that for me. And there may be complementary IP, like, hey, they make this great cocktail and I have no idea what the proportions or what goes into it, right? There may be other, IP that I don't get that's complementary to that main thing that is the hamburger. And then I think we see with things like delivery services, it's like somewhere in the middle, and it's the worst of both worlds to some degree. It's more expensive and it's not as good at being at the restaurant or making it yourself. So it's, I think, there's definitely some lessons to be taken from an analogy like that.